Hey guys, it's Woody the Unexceptional Gamer, and this is going to be a long commentary, so sit back, get comfortable, buckle in, loosen up that belt if you just had a big meal, and here we go. So I once did a commentary similar to this one about my YouTube history, about how I got started, how I grew, all the things I sort of learned along the way, and I thought, I was just kind of inspired to do one in a similar style about my childhood, and well, the reason I kind of pointed out is like I had some highs and some lows growing up, and I think it was those highs and lows, the fact that not everything went smoothly for me, but I was able to get some success that informs a lot of the Mail Monday answers that I give. So yeah, and let's talk about it. Let's see how it went. So, right before high school, I moved, well, 2 years before high school, I moved to a new town. I wasn't really thriving in Morristown, New Jersey. I didn't have the friends I wanted. My father saw there were, certain aspects of his kids that he didn't like, and he bought a summer home, sort of unrelated to that. And in that summer home, we loved it so much. We had the time of our lives. It was in Ocean City, New Jersey, and we just didn't want to go back. We didn't want to go back, and we told my dad, like, can we go to school here? Can we live here? Can we make this our new life? And he signed up for what was really a pretty gigantic sacrifice for the next decade. If you're young, it's hard to understand how long a decade is. but yeah, he decided to commute 2 hours a day to work and then 2 hours home from work for the next 10, 12 years so that my brother and I could be raised in Ocean City instead of where we were, which was Morristown, because that was better for us. But it turns out when you move like that, it's sometimes just more of the same. The adult version of me would have handled it really well, would have taken this opportunity to sort of reinvent himself and been the person I always wanted to be, etc. But the seventh grader in me was just kind of, insecure and not sure how to make new friends, which, by the way, listen to people, be nice to people, and you'll make plenty of friends. But I didn't know what I was doing. And I moved to seventh grade, and it was kind of a rough transition right after the summer ended. Like, the kids in school didn't instantly accept me and make me some sort of cool kid god that they carried around on their shoulders. It wasn't like that at all. It was pretty much the opposite. Anyway, headed into ninth grade, there I was. Like, I knew the people around me, but I was wasn't really thriving socially. It's just how it was. And another thing that got me was I was kind of small. I like, other kids were hitting puberty, and that guy who enters ninth grade with a beard, that wasn't me. That wasn't me at all. I was the guy who entered his sophomore year with no leg hair. And I wished I was bigger, and that was always, I don't know. When you're smaller, it's just like an extra little challenge. When you're smaller, it's high school on veteran mode. Everything is a little bit harder to do. But I don't know. I went through sort of my freshman and sophomore years kind of not really being noted, just under the radar perhaps, going through, doing my thing. I worked after school all the time, and I didn't really enjoy working. It was something that my father thought was good for me. He thought that, holding jobs throughout my childhood after school and stuff was awesome. I remember there was one time my father came home from work, and he was tired. He was exhausted because, accountants, if you don't know, work gigantic hours in the winter time or tax season in the United States. I don't know, globally. And he came home, he was tired, and I shot him this look like, man, you don't know tired. I just went to school, then after school I worked all day. Now I'm coming home at 7 p.m. or so, and I have to start my homework, and, you have no concept of what tired is. And now the adult version of me knows that he absolutely does have a concept of what tired is. But what was notable about that little exchange to me was how, like, that look I shot him of, you don't know what tired is, it didn't hurt his feelings. It made him proud. Like, he really liked that I was worn, I'll say, from all the work I put in. He really liked that it was, that I worked super hard. That was his thing. And maybe it was good for me, I don't know, because I tend to work pretty hard, into adulthood. I just do it all the time, constantly working. So, but that was me, and it was kind of hard for me to work that hard. And it seemed like my grades were suffering. I bet they would have been a little better if I wasn't holding jobs after school all the time. That's my opinion. But headed into my junior year, I got a lot taller, and my parents bought me a car. It was kind of nice. It was a Volkswagen GTI, and it was maybe 3 years old, 2 years old, something like that. So it was a used car, but I mean, it would be along the same lines of what a Volkswagen GTI that's 2 or 3 years old would be for you today. And yeah, it's pretty good by high school car standards, I'd say. So my junior year was going a little better. I had finally caught the eye of a girl. I had a car, and things were sweet, and things were going all right. What wasn't going all right were my grades. They were dreadful, and I remember I'd had conversations with other people, and I'd be like, what'd you get in whatever Mrs. Burns' class, and he'd be like, not wanting to tell me, and I said, it's all right, dude. I've had all the grades, and I think I've had every variation of plus, minus, A through F. I've had them all. I tried out every grade, and I know which ones are good to get and which ones are not through experience. So, and I don't know, are A through F, is that an international thing? It's, top grade through bottom grade, whatever you want to call it. So, I had some pretty rough grades, and my father's way of motivating me to turn this around and do more for school was usually to tell me about how dreadful life was going to be if I didn't. Like, that was his thing. And I remember he would outline scenarios like, this is the kind of apartment you're going to live, like a 1-bedroom, inexpensive, low-income housing type deal. And he painted a really, really bleak future. That was it. I talked to him, like, well, these are my, like, whatever, 17-year-old priorities. I'll have a good stereo, and I'll have this, and I'll have that. And he's like, you won't be able to afford a stereo, and you won't have room for it in this apartment. He literally described like a studio type thing with just a bed, a bathroom, and a kitchen, like all in one room with no walls. And said, this is the life that you're headed into with the kind of horrible grades that you're earning. And what he probably wanted from me was to, like, turn it around and say, like, oh wow, I want more out of life than this. This seems so terrible. But what actually happened was, like, it got me down, and it got me depressed. And this is my junior year. I had that, like, sort of in the back of my mind, while day to day I just sort of drove and had a girlfriend and stuff like that. So at one point what happened is I got into a car accident, and I ended up losing the car and the girl. The car accident, I fell asleep, and a lot of people think it was alcohol related. It wasn't. I was headed home from a bicycle race in Pennsylvania. And it was funny. The night before was awesome. The night before I had a date with the girl, Marcia, and it was just like ice cream or something. It was pretty innocent as far as dates go, and but I had a date with the girl, and then after I got home with her, I had to make some changes to my bike because it was a mountainous race, and I wasn't training in the mountains, so I had to change the gear ratios on it. And I was just up really late, and I woke up early to drive to the race the next morning, and it was a state away, so that was like a pretty big drive. I had to get up early, and I was just operating on like 5 hours sleep or less. I did the race, and I did poorly, and then on my drive home, I nodded off. Now, a lot of people that drive have this, like, I nodded off kind of story, but this car I had, even though it was fairly new, I don't know if the alignment was off or what, but it pulled to the right fairly strongly. And so, like, when I fell asleep, like the instant I fell asleep, the car veered off to the right and into the grass. And I should mention, by the way, like, I tried to pull over and go to sleep because I knew I was tired and I knew the situation was dangerous. But I couldn't fall asleep. I sat there bored for like 30 or 40 minutes, and I was like, man, if I can't fall asleep, then I won't fall asleep. It seemed to make sense at the time, but that's not how it happened. How it actually happened was, as soon as I started, again, I fell asleep, and like I said, I probably only closed my eyes for like 5-10 seconds, and that's dangerous, and it's horrible, and it's not acceptable. But I think that a lot of people, especially if you've been driving for a while, you probably have a similar story where you scared yourself with an action like that. And the thing in my case, though, was that the consequences were huge because the car didn't track straight. And as it hit off into the grass, I steered back on the road, and the pavement was like significantly higher than the grass. And it broke the car. The car steered to the right, crashed into a hill, and I broke my arm. And that turned out to be a big deal. So anyway, yeah, the car flipped 2.5 times, which is a tremendous, like, people say their car flipped, and a lot of times what they mean is they did half a flip and it landed on the roof. I did 2.5 full revolutions in my car. And during one of them, I put my arm out the window to protect myself. Like, because even though my seatbelt was on it, I had this idea that I was falling out the window as the car was landing on the driver's side window. And I put my arm out through what was now a broken window, and it broke upon impact to the ground, and they took me to the hospital. And the injury's not the real significant part of the story. The significant part of the story was that the things that were going right for me, like my newfound freedom in the car and the girlfriend, were suddenly gone. Those two things seem related to me, but the car wasn't just like a car is to me now, right? To me, I like cars. It's not like I view them as simple transportation devices, but at the time, the car represented so much. It represented like adulthood. It represented freedom. It represented decision making. It was like responsibility. It was the sum of everything that was good for me seemed to be my car. That was what it all sort of meant in my mind. And after I totaled it and didn't have a car anymore, it was it was like, man, now all I am is some guy with bad grades and no future, and nothing's working out. And this is about the time I tried to kill myself. So I guess I had like thoughts of suicide now and then, every so often, I wonder if everybody does, but I know I did. And it was just like, nah, I don't think so. Probably won't. It's not good. Maybe, I don't know. But when this didn't work out right, it wasn't that I thought I was like going to go to heaven and have some wonderful afterlife, or go to hell for that matter. I thought, maybe there'll be a reincarnation. Like, I didn't know. I thought maybe there'd just be a nothing, like a blankness, like a sleep, like sort of a non-existence. But whatever it was, it seemed worth rolling the dice to just try again. Like, I don't know what's next, but I know this sucks. Like, if I had a 6-sided die and I rolled it, life had given me like a 1. Re-roll. Like, I don't know what you're going to get next time, but start over. Like, that was my line of thinking at the time. So, I took, if I remember right, it was like a dog leash or belt, but I think it was a dog leash, or it was nylon, I think. And our bathroom had a skylight, so I don't know if you guys have skylights. It's like a window on your roof, and because you can't reach it very easily, we had this pole that you kind of like hold and spin to make the skylight go up and down. I know storefronts that have like those metal guards often have the same sort of thing. But anyway, the pole hooked onto this little hook, and it was hanging from the ceiling, and I was like, oh, that'll be perfect. So I took what I guess I'll call a dog leash. I don't remember exactly. and I wrapped it around my neck, and then I put it on. I got a chair, and I put the other side on this hook on the ceiling, and I stood on the chair, and I thought about it for a couple minutes. Like, all right, I'm doing it in such a way that you can't turn back, right? Like, if I had chosen to just swim to the bottom of the lake, that's a really extended decision-making process. But to stand on a chair and kick it out, that is you think about it, you do it, and then you don't turn back. Like, it's sort of over. So I thought about it. Like, do I want to kick this chair out and die? And I decided to do it. So I kicked the chair out, and I was starting to hang myself. So that lasted for not very long, probably 15 seconds or so of hanging, and then the hook from the ceiling, it broke, and I fell to the ground. And I remember afterwards, like, feeling, I guess, like melancholy. Like, I was a little, like, mildly disappointed. Like, that didn't work. But I didn't, like, immediately retry it. It was just like, like, fail, whatever, move on with my day. That's how that went. So, I was still depressed. It wasn't like, surviving a suicide suddenly turned things around for me. All the motivating factors that made me do it in the first place still existed. And that seems like a good place to take a break. Part 2 will be up tomorrow. 2 vids you may have missed. The top one is Mail Monday, and the bottom one is from my microwave series. I think you guys might like them. Have a good day.